Firstly, YouTube. Your auto-generating thumbnail system. Getting pretty good at creating clickbaity screenshots. I believe I've mentioned in maybe here and there in certain past videos that I don't edit my thumbnails. I just let the YouTube's thumbnail generating system that's programmed in their software just do their work on the video. But yeah, it's getting pretty good at recognizing stills in the video that could potentially be more attention drawing. If you want proof of that, just go look at the thumbnail for my "Are You Still Not Just Doing the Same Thing" video, or one of my, probably the video I made titled "Correcting Some Things That I Was Wrong About" nearly 3 months ago. Oh, and the thumbnail for my first part of exploring the city of Gatineau. So, yeah, there's that. Secondly, I'm just going to say thank you for, as of current, 129 subscribers. As seems to be a constant theme, this being the third time with my follower quantity. I'll gain a subscriber, and then right before I'm going to make a video on it, I'll lose a subscriber, and then I'll miraculously gain it back. This time I didn't, or at least as of recording this, I didn't gain it back. So once again, it's just like my thanks to the other 2 times. Thank you to the person who was initially the 130th. I'm sorry that the content wasn't what you were looking for. I hope someone else can provide, well, whatever you thought you saw in this initially. But also, thank you to the current, just to the current 129 people. Excuse me. Thirdly, I edited the description of my channel a little while back. I've done it when I thought I needed to clarify something at different points. But in relation to the fact that initially, still ideally, one of my desired career paths was pornographer and sex work, I edited it to say sensualistic pornographer, as I started to realize that that's a more fitting name for my ideologies towards pornography and sex work. And because last I checked, apparently the definition, or general consensus definition on Google has been updated to claim that pornography is just videography distributed for the sake of sexual arousal, which is true, but specifically not for sensualistic purposes, to have any form of emotional connectivity or sensual investment, which, yes, they thought there need to be more definitive definition for what people perceive as pornography. But that's not true in the slightest as far as I'm concerned. So, anyway, and along with that, I also, in terms of the disorders that I suffer from, I added on there dyscalculia. That's self-diagnosis, because after further examination of myself, neurological and neuropsychological examination, I definitely have dyscalculia, as well as I talked about in my 4th Exploring Ottawa video, mixed dyslexia, which I had been diagnosed with when I was much younger by a physician, licensed physician. But no, I absolutely have dyscalculia. Much more so, I would say, than mixed dyslexia. In fact, probably they were going based on my displayed, diagrammed math's ability to solve written out or displayed math equations, which I'm horrible at. If they were going off of that criteria, then I was misdiagnosed. I absolutely have dyscalculia. But, oh well. It's nothing new to me, just finding out the name. Fourthly, I'm just going to quickly clear up something from the Are You Still Not Just Doing the Same Thing video, when I mentioned the YouTuber and author John Green. No context. To clear up, because I didn't make it entirely clear in the video. I know with the example I brought up, he was promoting, from what him and his brother have shown in themselves, all proceeds for their coffee brand, or John's coffee brand, go to a charity of theirs, or a charity they, fund, that seeks to bring educational resources, or helps fund organizations that bring educational resources to communities that might not have the affordability for them, all across different parts of the world. I understand that, but that's not what I was complaining about in that video. I was complaining about how John was advertising it. That was my critique of the video that he posted in regards to, corporate manipulation for the purpose of capitalist consumerism. Anyway, no context, that's just a clarification of that. And fifthly, or lastly, I, as of right now, have yet again managed to gain another job. Hopefully my final job here in Ottawa. That I'll be employed there at till close to mid to late, mid April. Oh yes, one more thing to mention. My departure date from the city has been moved forward by 5 days. Instead of April 25th, it'll be April 20th for just, well, personal reasons that I won't go into here, at least right now. It's at a small business pizzeria in the Orleans district of Ottawa, in Western Orleans. I mentioned it, that I dropped my resume there in the last video. But now, on to the purpose of this video. Well, to put it bluntly, you read the title. I already know what I'm gonna title this video. I've given it a lot of thought over the last little while. So I'll just reiterate it. I've come to realize, sort of, for the longest time, with how my morality and philosophies have been, cognitively, I've held this feeling, but I just didn't really pay much attention to it. But I'll be truthfully honest, I have far more respect for anyone who not just identifies politically, but in terms of their acted out philosophies, behaves I have more respect for a blatant, upfront neo-Nazi, or someone who affiliates with neo-Nazism, Nazi fascism, and blatant hedonism than I do for someone who self-identifies and follows the principles of cynicism, if they're a subtle Naziist or subtle neo-Nazi, or believes in the notion of anti-capitalism. I have far more respect for the first two. Why? Because at the very least, I can respect the fact that the first mentioned two ideologies and philosophies, for as horrendous as I feel they are, give credit where credit is due. At the very least, they're not performative. At the very least, they're up front. I guess I'll define for those who don't know what each of the philosophies entail. Well, neo-Nazism is basically new era beliefs that have been cultivated out of the political ideologies formed by the German Nazi Party back during the rise of, well, Adolf Hitler during the Second World War to becoming the, well, totalitarian dictator of Germany under, well, their ideological principles of, well, the eco-political ideology of fascism, of total ethnic superiority and class superiority division based, based upon race and culture, and also financial hierarchy of said ethnic groups within an economic sector of, well, society. And, well, I think you know that's the basic synopsis of neo-Nazism. Hedonism is the philosophical belief of total self-gratification, total self-pleasure, at the expense of only your interest, solely your interest, in terms of, well, in terms of social interactions with people. It's not the same as the philosophy of egoism. Egoism has more, it's going to sound contradictory, but as far as I'm concerned, more altruistic elements to it. Far more. But hedonism is, well, I guess I could just call it an extremist form of egoism. Basically, as long as whatever you're socially involved with is benefiting you to the maximum amount of efficiency, you don't care how it affects anyone else, just as long as you're living for total self-satisfaction. If you inadvertently do something beneficial, well, what would you do? Good for you. But if you do something detrimental, then whoops-a-daisy, I still have all the time to play these. But that's hedonism. Cynicism, as well, as far as I'm concerned, it's heavily embedded to a lot of the socially awkward, more loner-esque, or even more alternative, artsy, emo, I guess, in terms of music, cultural scene. I despise the philosophy. It's based upon the principles of mainly having a lot of questionable, well, having heavy distrust and heavy disbelief of sincerity in people, and also people's well, moral codes and standpoints on, well, what they in turn believe, as well as mocking whatever set communal or societal structure that you may be operating in within any sort of set system, or I guess in an anarchistic sense, non-set. system, just in an environment that utilizes some form of, well, has some form of social engagement. But mocking it and just defaming the said system that's in place whilst doing nothing to greatly have influence over it to try and stop any of the atrocious, problematic things that a system or people who are in control of a system or have a lot of heavy power over it, not attempting to dismantle it or influence it in any major way, at the very least. And mainly just taking what opportunities you can from from the establishment that's been set up in your environment, and just rolling with the punches and, well, still at the same time dismantling. Well, no, sorry, not physically dismantling or trying to, but not dismantling, mocking. Here's my bias: it's not dismantling what some people may think it's mocking. It's just it's talking. It's talking and not doing anything. No, or at the very least, not trying to, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, that's cynicism. And anti-capitalism. Oh boy. Well, anti-capitalism is just it's pseudo-economic hedonism. That's it. I don't know what else to say for that. The idea is based upon, like, people who don't agree with the capitalist ecopolitical ideology and system of operation in a country, or just in a society in general, in a social faction. But they may even downright, depending on the person, downright despise it. But mainly just being of the belief that there's nothing they can really do about it, or just thinking that they deserve to utilize the system to their advantage to a great extent, to try and make as much profit as they possibly can for their own, to try and make as much profit as they possibly can, not for their own survival. They may think it's for their own survival. No, it's not. Not to the extent of what the anti-capitalist movement thinks overall, abroad, or broadly. Utilizing, well, the economic sector just, and, well, opportunism as well, just to take what best offer you are given so that you can maximize your financial comfortability within the capitalist system that is set up. In terms of, basically, to put it bluntly, just behaving the same way as the capitalist overlords that control the economic sectors of the world and the stock market and exchange, but just doing their same tactics, basically, with maybe less manipulation overall of things, but just going with what you got and justifying your actions by saying things like, well, we've been oppressed for so long under these systems, especially the economic system of capitalism, that or under the materialistic commercialist ideologic culture of the societies around us. So we deserve to have we deserve to have 2 condos in fucking Vancouver and 2 moderately expensive vehicles and 5 PlayStations or 10 DVD players, buy a dubious amount of subscriptions to streaming services, or fancy fashionable clothes that are more high end in terms of value. That's the ideology of anti-capitalism. Just hating the system, but yeah, no, this is it. It's yeah, I hate capitalism, but fuck it. That's it. That's all it is. That's all it is. So why do I hate him so much? At those. Well, let me preface quickly. I hate all I hate all 5 of those ideologies. Well, okay. 2 of them are the same. So subtle neo-Nazism and blatant, same ideology, just 2 different tactics of, well, being presented, how they manifest, 2 different forms of manifestation. And as far as I'm concerned, there is no difference between anti-capitalism and hedonism. There isn't at all. It really isn't, for the most part, at least just on a principle level. So, why do I hate them so much? Well, they're based upon just sociopathic behavior and, well, unsympathetic total self-gain. Even though I now am under the belief that we all have our own selfishness, total selfishness in terms of our desires. Although I'll talk more about it in another video, but people, selfishness does not mean sociopathy, lack of empathy. It doesn't. But that'll be for a different time. They well, they fuel hierarchical systems that are already in place, detrimental cultural and sociocultural and governmental and economic systems that are and have been functioning for the longest time. Not functioning, in place for the longest time. They don't function. They don't serve anyone any good. Not even the elites. They don't serve them at all. Well, financially, yeah, they serve them. And status-wise, they serve them. Psychologically, they destroy their, well, emotional health as far as I'm concerned. Essentially, they, especially Okay, all of them serve a purpose of, well, antisocial personality, sociopathy, and benefit monopolizing corporations or businesses just in general. It puts, well, unhelpful aspects of our nature in terms of our self-centered qualities to the forefront in ways that are not helpful in the slightest to lead actual selfish lives. They're not helpful at all. Beneficial selfish lives, not. And well, they also seek at a superioritization into, well, obviously with neo-Nazism, fascism, superioritization, and capitalism of a demographic of people. But back to my reasoning of why I have, as far as my thought process goes right now, why I have ultimately more respect, like genuine respect, just solely on an ideological level. Why I have more respect for a blatant neo-Nazi and a blatant hedonist is because, as far as I'm concerned, at the very least, to anyone who abides by those political movements, at the very least, you're telling me that you're corrupt. You're telling me that you've been corrupted, you've been severely psychologically damaged from either interpersonal or sociological trauma that has been passed down onto you, as well as could include generational trauma. You're telling me up front that you are in favor of horrendous atrocities and non-beneficial self-obsession. You're telling me that. If you, whether both you're acting out the principles of your morality or just being a complete hypocrite and merely identifying with it, it doesn't matter. As far as I'm concerned, you're putting it to the forefront that, hey, I'm a pretty horrible person, at least as far as my morality goes. I've been taught a lot of misinformation, and I am not afraid to show my ignorance. That's what you're telling me, as far as I'm concerned by this point. If I was to sit in a conversation, which I absolutely would, and, well, looking at some people I know, absolutely have, if I was to sit in a conversation with you and say, like, I'm a fan of Adolf Hitler's writing, Mein Kampf, I've read it 20 times over. I also a fan of Ayn Rand, Atlas Shrugged, or what was her other shitty books? One was called The Essentials of Capitalism. It was a long time ago that I read a bit of it. Oh, whatever. Her other shitty works of art. And oh, I'm also I'm a QAnon supporter as well. And I believe that the Nazi regime of Germany did a lot of beneficial things for the country and for, okay, let's say they're a white supremacist as well, or whatever race they are, if they were Black, Hispanic, Eastern Asian, supremacy of their race too, following Nazist ideology. I believe they did beneficial greatness for, well, the human race. Okay, fine, let's say that. I'm listening to you, I'm listening to your drivel, garbage, nonsense, corruption. But that's the key thing. I will sit there, I will not at all agree as far as my morality goes right now with anything that you're saying. But I will, at the very least, at the end of that conversation, if we don't get into a verbal altercation, if we just agree to disagree, I will shake your hand. I will shake that alt-rightist's hand. Same thing would go if you were to tell me that, hey, I live for total self-pleasure. I really don't have much care for anyone else, as long as if something good happens out of what I do, fine. That's absolutely fine for them. That's great. But I care about if I care if the ramifications of a certain event have a good outcome only for me, in an empathy-less sense, sociopathic, or egotistical personality disorder sense, egocentrism. I care if it solely benefits me. I don't truly care if anyone else obtains anything of worth from it. Good if it does. Fantastic for them. But that's their problem, not mine. I will again shake your hand. I'll completely disagree with you. I'll be blasted mad internally, as I'm now trying to not get vocally aggressive. I'll be blasted mad, but I'll still shake your hand. Because you're telling me directly to my face, you, as a person that is the person that you are right now, you suck. You're corrupt. You're highly corrupt. I know that may sound harsh, at least in terms of my morality has for the longest time been of embedding empathy in some regard and sympathy into my morality, which still is. I have empathy for people like that, and sympathy. But that doesn't mean I don't hate your ideologies and what you do. I have another theory, one of my theories that I'm proposing and crafting together with all the rest. One of them specifically pertains to something along those lines. But anyway, I'll shake your hand if you just are of that political and ideological demographic. But I will not shake your hand if you tell me, a cynic tells me, a genuine cynic tells me, I hate these systems. Our social systems don't work. The economy is completely fucked. Our governments are highly, highly intrusive, corrupt. The policing systems are a total mess. Absolutely invasive, encroaching. But, and I think a lot of cultural elements that we have in our societies right now are highly detrimental, but no, I don't think there's much that can be done. In a more pessimistic sense, I think the best I can do is just, I'll talk about them, I'll mock them, but I'll just do what I can with, I'll mock them, and I'll just use what I can from them. I'll use what I can. There's nothing's gonna get better than this. It's not. Most people are not sincere with what they say, and it's very flimsy with their morality. Most of them are in it for themselves anyway. So I'll just use what opportunities I get with these systems. I'm still gonna poke and laugh at it. I'm not shaking your hand. I'm not. Specifically here, before I talk about, I guess go into anti-capitalism more. Oh, and, well, subtle neo-Nazism, neo-fascism. Cynicism is, oh my god, I don't think I've ever really mentioned cynicism, for so long, how much I truly have despised that philosophy. It's a horrendously corrupt philosophy. Horrendously. You're just... all you are is a... as far as I'm going to consider you, a passive-aggressive opportunist. And someone who really just... you see these systems, you know the problems, or at least what you view as being, from your perspective, as being genuine issues with the social and societal systems that we have constructed. In the slightest ways, you don't even try to think of at least many cynics, from what I've seen, at least rooted in the philosophy especially, don't even try at all. Specifically, let me just specifically focus on the principles of the philosophy. It's an attempt to not even try and come up with a benefit, mainly because it's so-called futile against the systems that are already in place. Well, as far as I'm concerned, there's provable evidence that's completely untrue. And, you just using the system while mocking it, in terms of using it to what the highest, by the dictation of the philosophy, technically, the highest degree that you possibly can, well, you're no better at all. And people who are cynics, or who are maybe more favorable to cynicism, or a cynical way of thinking, will say, oh, but no, we're critically thinking about it, we're commenting on the problems of these issues, and we really just don't think by human nature that there, how deeply embedded that there's really any way to truly fix these. So the most we could really do is just point and laugh and try and survive at the highest length that we possibly can. They'll defend it this way. No, it's, as far as I'm concerned, that is not true in the slightest. There is, as far as I've seen by this point, yeah, there are ways you could actually go about. Maybe not the word change would be the best. Maybe change wouldn't be the best word, but go away from the systems as much as possible without being an opportunist. And as far as I'm concerned, cynicism is a fakely profound philosophy. It's a philosophy that it seems to many people, unfortunately, analyzing in philopsychology, it seems very, because of trauma they may have gone through as well, it seems very truthful. It seems very aligned with how the world works as of now, or seemingly how people behave amongst one another. It seems correct on the surface. General, just general, like a general truth on the surface. It seems like it just, yeah, okay. Throughout much of history, societal systems have been corrupted or co-opted into for horrendous deeds, because of psychological disorders forming, because as well of those social systems. It's only further made things into a larger mess, culminated in a very uncontrollable conglomerate, and humor would be a good way, supposedly, to handle it. And since we do need to survive, and we've suffered through much of all these horrible problems, why not try and just make the most benefit for ourselves and just go with the opportunities that are presented to us? Yeah, on the surface, it seems like a general, okay, that sounds fine, that sounds good. But no, when you really start to examine it, you realize, no, you're just profiting off of the system without really trying to go as far away as you possibly can from it, even if you were using the resources from that system. And I guess what I've recently looked at would be called more syndicalism. I guess an anarchist philosophy would be more, well, anarcho-syndicalism, I guess, is what the term is called. But yeah, it's not some, as far as I'm concerned, it's not a greatly profound philosophy. It's not. It's ironically, in a contradictory sense, it's the entire basis of its philosophy of, I was wrong wording, the entire basis of the principles of the philosophy are, for as much as it says it believes there's a lot of lack of integrity of people, well, the philosophy in and of itself sure doesn't have much integrity. And it's, well, for as much as many the doctrines of cynicism and how many cynics behave, it's well, for as much as being untrustworthy of sincerity, well, philosophy is pretty insincere in and of itself, as far as I'm concerned. Very insincere. Yeah, it's a morally deplorable philosophy, as far as I'm concerned. And to, okay, let me think for a minute. What am I trying to say? Well, I think I've made my point about cynicism clear enough with how I described it. But I absolutely will make it clear that I believe this and when I come to my theories, make a video on them, because I'm still plugging away at getting them typed out. I have a theory in relation to cynicism, the philosophies of cynicism, pessimism, and misanthropy. And that's why I said before I started that whole rant about people who I believe to be consciously sincere cynics, or genuine cynics, who, well, both consciously and subconsciously believe in the principles of cynicism. For those people, I think you've been corrupted. And you people, whether you're subconsciously a cynic or not, I will not hear that you're not afraid of death. I will not hear it. You, in any philosophies really concerning very much more hopeless beliefs, concerning more hopeless feelings of hopelessness towards humanity and the essence of life, and how and just existence in general. You can't, as far as I'm concerned, you can't look at me with a straight face and tell me that, and then still be here in front of me, not having killed yourself, and tell me you're not afraid to die. You're full of shit. If you're absolutely full of shit, you're denying, you're in complete denial if you actually believe that. If you consciously, let me make that clear, in psychology, if you consciously believe that, because you sure as hell unconsciously don't. And don't spin my words there. I'm not condoning suicide by any means. That is not what I said about you having not killed yourself. That is not me telling you to kill yourself if you are more inclined to cynicism or pessimism or misanthropy, or from my religious perspective, if you're an atheist or and anything of the sort. That is not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you're completely full of it if you still choose to wake up every morning feel that there is no hope for true change in the world, in people, or in just your situation, your interpersonal situation in your immediate life, and not at least attempt to commit suicide. You can't tell me that you can't tell me that you're not afraid to die if you actually believe those philosophies and actively try and communicate and socialize with people, try and discuss things about your beliefs, and well, you can't tell me that and then go towards socialization, because as far as I'm concerned, cognitively, it's not true. Like, you're lying to yourself. You're lying to your own intuition. So I will not shake your hand if you identify as a cynic, and if you, as far as my own psychoanalysis goes, if you truly are cynical. I will not shake your hand out of respect for your beliefs, your philosophies. I won't alienate you, but by no means. I have friends who are of supposedly more cynical viewpoints, one who identifies as a cynic, which, by the way, you're not a cynic. I don't care what you say, you're not. You may not realize it, but you're not. Subconsciously, you're not. Same with someone who I used to know who identified as a misanthropist. You're also not. No, you're not. I'll get more into that later. But I will not clap and approve of your philosophical standpoint, because as far as I'm concerned, it's just deplorable. It's morally bankrupt. And as for anti-capitalism, you're not an anti-capitalist. Paradoxically, anti-capitalism is it's capitalism. It's denial capitalism. It's ignorance. It's thinking. It's false. It's being falsely profound. Thinking you're falsely profound with your livelihood. You're not. You're not profound. You're not. It's not this fantastical idea. It really isn't. All you're doing is taking opportunities that are seemingly better and going along with the economic system that's in place of hierarchical funneling and providing, well, the labor of workers to funnel mass amounts of economic resources straight to bourgeoisie CEOs and executives, funneling the trade currency, at least in the modern world that we use, funneling it straight to them, obtaining a higher wealth than those labor workers, and which allows them to gain more access to beneficial resources, security in terms of control systems we have in policing, security allows them to monopolize and tailor other forms of the smaller business world, the non-private sector, technically. No, it is still technically the private sector considering private business, but causing them to tailor their own economic situations and business modeling towards the higher elites, the more expansionist corporations that have a monopoly over things, because they have more access to resources. They control more of it. They distribute it based upon their own terms in a free market stance. Since we use trade currency in most of the modern world to determine the exchange of resources, of necessities, they're funneling so much of it towards themselves, setting their own wages straight to them. It's not going to the labor workers. Does anyone bother to actually think about this? Does anyone bother to actually take time to realize how many, from mega corporations to moderate corporations to small businesses, does anyone bother? And I understand with the small businesses, yes, most of them. This is in terms of the moderate to mega corporations, huge expansionism. Does anyone bother to notice or to take into account the fact that absolutely all of them pay all their workers at every single level of the frontline workers, cash in, let's say, like a grocery store, a mega corporate grocery store, cashiers, janitors, stock workers, what's another one? If they have, say, transport area in the back or something, forklift workers, or anything more of the sort, or customer service, or manning, well, technically the phones would be customer service. Does anyone bother to take notice in a majority of the westernized world and easternized, the globe, what we consider Eastern philosophy is dead by this point, but does anyone bother to take notice of the fact that all of them pay minimum wage? But only minimum wage based on what the governmental system the country has decreed is the bare minimum you have to pay your employees? Has anyone bothered to take notice of that? The general public? No. Absolutely not. A minimum wage, quite literally in definition, is the bare minimum you are, in terms of a judicial system, legally required to pay those working for your corporation. Bare minimum. Companies that have CEOs and executives, or that make billions of dollars of profit a year, it funnels directly to them. They're higher corporate elites. It funnels to them. This delusional dream that in megacorporations that have locations all over the globe, to moderate corporations that are usually maybe localized to one nation, but still expansionists across the nation, or maybe to the region or state or province territory that they're in. The money is, the economic trade currency is not distributed near enough to the workers as just being funneled towards the corporate CEOs. It's not. And if you actually think that they're going to walk in to the branch, pick you out and say, hey, you're getting promoted to executive of the branch. Or you think the branch owner most likely is not going to be histrionic in some way, gaining histrionic personality traits, and kissing up to the higher ups in the company, and you think they're going to promote you, most likely. It's not going to happen for a majority of people. And as far as I'm concerned, the only reason it does happen to certain people is to increase productivity and incentivize people to keep working harder to, well, potentially have that ability to obtain that success. You won't. They are selectively chosen to keep you thinking that you will be able to get somewhere. You won't. You will be maybe a few more dollars and a bonus thrown in here and there to incentivize you to keep just plugging away at the labor. It won't happen if your employer was actually following in a capitalist ideological sense. People who say, oh, the philosophy of capitalism has become corrupt, the nations have become corrupt, who are more Republican-esque or parliamentarian. No, they haven't. Free market is not some glorious, as far as I'm concerned, economic system. No, if you're redistributing your wealth, you're functioning in if you're redistributing it and claiming, well, you could use capitalism to redistribute your wealth, as fucking Jordan Peterson has claimed so many times, and Mount Walsh. Yeah, you're functioning in pseudo-socialism, guys. The exact thing you claim to hate. So no, it's not corruption of the system that has turned capitalism into a degrading, unstable, unuseful ecopolitical system. It's not. It's how it is, what it is based upon, how it's utilized. And as far as I'm concerned, it's a flimsy system that is easily manipulated. Easily manipulated. But I digress. Anti-capitalism, you're not any different. You, as far as I'm concerned, morally do not deserve the pain of that you've suffered under sociologically from being maybe stuck in the lower class, lower middle class, or the impoverished, or maybe straddling the line between lower middle class and maybe standardized middle class. What would be considered by today's standards? You went through a lot of pain, a lot of uncertainty in your childhood towards potentiality of homelessness, or maybe even in adulthood a prospect of joblessness. Well, as far as I'm concerned, you're just taking on the ideals of the oppressor. You're just doing the same thing that they did. They did to you. That they're still doing to you. Like, your higher attempts at achieving a bit of a higher income is maybe minimalistic at best at points. If you were, most of that in terms of the land rights, in terms of privatization of land, hydro, depending on your country, hydro bills being, well, taken out from your income, running water, heat, exhaust, the maintenance of all those things, or in terms of landlording, if you were a tenant paying, say, rent to someone who owned a plot of land that a housing structure had been built on. It's most likely they're going to increase, they're going to increase the charges towards you, and it's gonna just, well, they're gonna keep trying to, they're gonna keep charging you. Hold on a second. So, back to, well, I think I've explained enough for anti-capitalism. It might have been brief, but I think you get the gist of it. Now, I guess I need to justify, well, yes, I will justify having more respect for subtle neo-Nazism than, no, sorry, having more respect for blatant neo-Nazism than subtle. Well, simply because one is not trying to be my friend, trying to be my ally, when in reality they're the furthest thing from it. Subtle neo-Nazism or neo-fascism is what I would consider trying to persuade someone of any, well, certain demographic that would ideologically be oppressed under, well, the ruling Nazi idealists' morals of, well, I hate that. I hate it so much. You are trying to manipulate a populace, or you're trying to manipulate someone into believing that you're something else than you actually are. And this isn't to go for someone who has, like, unknowingly subconscious or conscious biases that are very ignorant. It's not in terms of that subtlety. I'm talking about knowing maliciousness, malicious, malevolent intent, and being very discreet, subdued about it. It's, well, it's a very cunning and it's an attempt to root out things that you could use to benefit your own dehumanizing ideals and keep those you wish to oppress close to you and under you, so that they're giving you more benefit. I see it all the time in mass marketing and governmental leadership of the world in modern times, and how it's been for a long, long while. Even so, despite them having the same basic philosophical principles, someone who's blatant and upfront about their deep-seated poisoning of the mind. Someone who's blatant about it, as far as I'm concerned, is far more deserving of my respect on a moralistic level, on an ethical level, than someone who is patting me on the back and cozying up to me to try and strip me down and use me for what they can gain out of me, and oppress the actual truth of me. I think that's all I really had to say for that. I guess I'll just quickly add on to something I wanted to say in the last video directed at my message towards children of any demographic experiencing ageism. In terms of if you have, say, authoritarian parents, I know there's a dilemma that a lot of children are afraid of well, they're overly controlling parental figures taking away their beloved items or threatening to have possession over their property or just discard it. I don't know for each individual how this is going to help in terms of what advice I can give. But all I'm going to say is if your parent is threatening you with threatening to take away a beloved item of yours, and you've critically thought and have come to the conclusion that you're in the right position of whatever you're debating with them about, let them take it. Fucking let them. And then do exactly what you were going to do. And then when they threaten to ground you again or take another item away, let them take it. And then do it again. And then if they do the same thing, then do it again. They take another away and do it again, and do it again and again. They will eventually get to a point where they have nothing left to take away from you, except the clothes on your back or the house you live in. And then you can just say to them, well, look, what are you going to do now? You have nothing left to take away from me. So you're going to have to talk to me civilly, or you're going to have to try and see my point of view, because I'm going to keep doing it. Let them. Let them take it. If you truly believe in what you're standing for, let them have it. Or try and make sure that they don't get it, and do everything in your power, I guess, without, well, what I would have considered, I guess, to be morally corrupt, to try and go about it as peacefully as possible, where you don't have to induce self-defense. So, just let them take it. They'll eventually have nothing left to take from you. One last thing I'll say here is in terms of contradictions yet again, or my own cognitive dissonance with my morality crisis. Despite my ranting of this whole video, and previous videos as I talked about when I was discussing contradictions of life, I did something, well, as far as I consider ethically deplorable yet again. Just like I did with the kidnapping in Toronto. Just like, well, my regrets of messing up my extended family's cottage. Still don't forgive them for what they did, but I regret messing it up further. And a bunch of other things, but in regards to this new job I have at the pizzeria, one of my goals for this year was to, well, in terms of if I was confronted by police, law enforcement, try not to manipulate them in small ways or lie to them in any sort of way. Not because I'm afraid of them to a great extent. I hate the policing systems, as typical. But just morally, be upfront with if I was doing something that was considered deemed illegal, be upfront with it. But that really just, I guess, extended to not manipulating anyone or trying not to in terms of consciously what I'm aware of and can control. Well, when I called the owner of this restaurant back to see about the prospect of a job, they were asking me questions and I was answering. And well, long story short, they said something and I didn't really know how to answer because it kind of, well, I didn't anticipate it and it stunned me in my tracks. And I Well, I answered it in a somewhat truthful manner of, well, I'm fine to do this or that. Then they asked something else in regards to what I wanted, and I double spoke. I just, quick as a flash, what I could think of, and I didn't really have time to process it, but I used the manipulation tactic of double speaking. I told him, yeah, well, I don't have any of this idea in mind for what I wanted. In reality, though, I did. It's just I wasn't specific to it. Purposely distorted language to make it seem as though what you were implying was not actually what you were implying. And as far as I'm concerned, that was another terrible thing that I've done. I don't care. Like, I was in conversation with a friend recently who I called in Toronto, who said, oh, well, you were really in need of a job right now. You were really desperate to find one. You just trying to get employment for it. I don't care. Like I just said before, in that regard, I did the same thing that so many other people who have, well, caused me strife done to me. Makes me know better in a manner that I could have controlled. And I haven't admitted this. I haven't admitted it to my new employer yet. By the time I leave the city, when I have to quit the job, I don't even know if I will. Morally, I think I should. But I don't know. It's 2:46 in the morning. Oh, damn. I just remembered. I was gonna wear it for this video. Yep, I still have it. I'm bloody well keeping it. Said in my third part of exploring Ottawa. I loved the design of this. Whoever made it, probably a labor worker in their Chinese prison, or I believe this was made in China, but or a low wage just a low-waged worker. I said I was going to keep this and use it. Use it when I could, or when I felt I'd have the opportunity to. Maybe I'll wear it in whatever video I make next. Full through. Actually do a video where I fully wear it. Well, let's hope I remember to. Now I have this new job, hopefully the final job of my time here in the city of Ottawa. And I'm just trying as hard as I can to get those goddamn hypotheses and scientific, what I feel to be needed scientific implementations written out and done so that I can make a video on them, send them off to all the specialists I cite in it who are still alive in their respective fields, and for myself to continuously study and evolve them with time as I'm on this trek. But right now I'm going to try and get some sleep. If you made it this far in the video, I'm sorry if I said anything that offended you in it. I'm sorry if I missed any crucial information or overlooked any piece of an alternative point of view. I'm sorry if, sorry if it came off as very... I'm not sorry if it came off as harsh, because I meant it to be, but I'm sorry if it caused you any amount of discomfort, even if it was needed discomfort. Okay. I hope that you have a fantastic night.